The crystal water glasses needed to be perfect. Chen had learned that lesson on her first day at Luciano's, Chicago's most exclusive Italian restaurant, where a single smudge could mean the difference between a generous tip and a complaint to management. She held each glass up to the soft amber lighting, checking for spots, her movements practiced and efficient in the pre-dinner quiet. The late afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden rectangles across the white tablecloths. In 2 hours, Chicago's elite would fill these tables, politicians, CEOs, old money families who'd been dining here for 3 generations. But right now, in this suspended moment of calm, the dining room belonged to Maya and the other servers preparing for the evening rush. She caught her reflection in one of the polished wine glasses. 26 years old, dark hair pulled back in the sleek bun required by Luciano's strict dress code, the simple black dress and white apron, that marked her as staff rather than clientele. Her hearing aids were tucked discreetly behind her ears, nearly invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for them. She'd learned to make herself invisible in other ways too, moving quietly through wealthy spaces, anticipating needs before they were voiced, reading lips and body language with the precision of someone who'd been navigating a hearing world since birth. She read people the way others read books. Every micro-expression, every gesture, every shift in posture told her things that spoken words often hid. It made her exceptional at her job, even if most customers never realized why. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Table 6 needs 2 more settings. Her manager Antonio signed to her as he passed. One of the few people here who'd bothered to learn even basic ASL. Big party tonight. VIP treatment. Maya nodded and gathered the additional place settings. VIP at Luciano's meant someone with serious money or serious power, usually both. She'd served plenty of them. Venture capitalists celebrating deals, lawyers billing $400 an hour, surgeons whose hands were insured for millions. They all blurred together after a while, united by their assumption that the servers were interchangeable and essentially invisible. She was arranging the silverware with geometric precision when she felt that subtle shift in the restaurant's atmosphere that came when someone important entered. The other servers' postures changed, their movements becoming more deferential. Antonio appeared from the kitchen, his professional smile firmly in place as he moved toward the entrance. Maya glanced up and her breath caught. The man walking through Luciano's entrance didn't just command attention, he demanded it. He was perhaps 35, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a private, charcoal suit that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his strong-jawed face clean-shaven, and he moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. But it was his eyes that stopped her, dark, intelligent, and carrying a weight that suggested he'd seen things most people couldn't imagine. Behind him walked 6 men in dark suits, their hands positioned near their jackets, in a way that made Maya's survival instincts prickle. Not bodyguards exactly, something more dangerous, more organized. And clinging to the man's arm was a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Blonde hair in perfect waves, designer dress that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, heels that added 4 inches to her already impressive height. She was beautiful in that calculated way that required teams of stylists and personal trainers and very expensive maintenance. Antonio was practically bowing as he led them toward table 6. The woman's laugh carried across the restaurant, sharp and performative, designed to be heard and envied. Maya kept her head down and finished setting the table, but she couldn't help stealing glances at the group. The man, clearly the center of all this attention, had an intensity about him that made the air feel charged. When he moved, everyone else adjusted their orbits around him like planets around the sun. Dante. The blonde woman's voice was loud enough that Maya could hear it even through her hearing aid's background noise reduction. This table is fine, isn't it? I told Daddy we should go to that new place in the Gold Coast, but you insisted on this old establishment. The man, Dante said something Maya couldn't catch, his lips barely moving. But whatever it was made the blonde woman pout prettily and squeeze his arm. Maya finished her work and started to retreat, but Antonio caught her attention, signing quickly. You're taking table 6 tonight. They requested our best server. Maya's stomach dropped. She was good at her job, exceptional even, but VIP tables always came with complications. She signed back. Are you sure? What about Marcus? Marcus called in sick. It's you. Antonio's expression was sympathetic but firm. You'll be fine. Just stick to the script, be professional, and remember. He fingered the name on the reservation book, blocking it from her view, but his lips were clear. Dante Moretti doesn't accept anything less than perfection. Moretti. The name sent ice through Maya's veins. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they pretended not to. The Moretti family wasn't just wealthy, they were connected. Powerful in ways that had nothing to do with legitimate business, and everything to do with the shadowy infrastructure that ran beneath the city's glittering surface. And she was about to serve them dinner. Maya approached table 6 with her professional smile firmly in place, carrying water glasses on a tray balanced with the precision of someone who'd been doing this for 4 years. She set the glasses down smoothly, her eyes tracking the table's occupants through her peripheral vision. Dante Moretti sat at the head of the table, his posture relaxed but alert in that way that reminded Maya of coiled springs still on the surface but ready to move instantly. The blonde woman, his fiancée, Maya had gathered from the enormous diamond on her left hand, was draped across the chair beside him, one manicured hand possessively on his arm. The other 4 people at the table were clearly associates, 3 men in expensive suits who had the same dangerous edge as Dante's security team, and 1 woman in her 40s wearing pearls that probably cost more than Maya's car. Maya pulled out her small notepad, the one she used to write down orders since she couldn't rely on hearing them correctly in the restaurant's ambient noise. She'd developed a system: take the order, confirm it by repeating what she'd written, and make sure everyone was satisfied before heading to the kitchen. She started with the woman in pearls, whose lips were easy to read as she ordered the sea bass. Moved to the 3 men, each ordering steaks with the kind of casual expectation that came from never worrying about the price. Then she turned to Dante Moretti. Up close, he was even more imposing, not just physically, though he was clearly powerful beneath that tailored suit, but in the sheer force of his presence. When his dark eyes met hers, Maya felt the weight of his full attention in a way that most customers never bothered with servers. "The ossobuco," he said, his voice low and controlled. Maya caught most of it from reading his lips, the rest from the deep rumble she could hear through her aids. "And tell Marco I want it prepared the way he made it for my father." Maya nodded and wrote it down, then turned to the fiancé. The blonde woman was staring at her phone, one finger with that massive diamond tapping against the screen with clear irritation. Maya waited, then cleared her throat softly to get her attention. The woman looked up, her eyes sweeping over Maya with the kind of dismissive assessment that categorized and discarded in an instant. Her lips moved rapidly, and Maya caught only fragments. "Whatever. Caesar. Extra. No, actually." Maya's stomach tightened. The woman was speaking too fast, not enunciating clearly, and her face was turned partially away, making it impossible to read her lips properly. "I'm sorry," Maya said, her voice carefully modulated in that way she'd practiced for years to sound as normal as possible. "Could you repeat that? I want to make sure I get your order right." The blonde woman's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Are you serious right now? I just told you." "I know, and I apologize. I just want to confirm," Maya started, but the woman cut her off. "Oh my God, Dante, did they seriously give us a server who can't even take a simple order?" The woman's voice had risen, sharp with irritation. "This is Luciano's, not some diner." Maya felt heat creep up her neck, but she kept her professional smile in place. "Ma'am, I just need you to repeat, what's your problem?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "Are you stupid or just incompetent?" The table went silent. Maya was acutely aware of everyone's attention shifting to her, of Dante Moretti's dark eyes watching this exchange with an intensity that made her want to disappear. "I'm deaf, ma'am," Maya said quietly, keeping her voice steady even though her hands wanted to shake. "I read lips to understand orders. If you could just speak clearly and face me." "You're what?" The blonde woman's face twisted with something between disgust and disbelief. She turned to Dante, her voice loud enough that nearby tables were starting to stare. "They gave us a deaf waitress? At a Michelin-starred restaurant? This is unbelievable." "Vanessa." Dante's voice was quiet, but it carried a warning that made everyone at the table go still. But Vanessa was on a roll now, her pretty face ugly with contempt. "No, seriously, Dante. We're paying $300 a person for this dinner, and they can't even provide a server who can hear? What if there's an emergency? What if we need something and she doesn't hear us calling her?" Maya's professional mask was cracking. She'd dealt with rude customers before it came with the territory, but something about this woman's casual cruelty, the way she was discussing Maya like she wasn't standing right there, made her feel small in a way she hadn't felt since high school. "Ma'am, I assure you I'm fully capable," Maya tried. "I don't care what you're capable of," Vanessa snapped, making mocking air quotes around the word. I want a real server. Someone who can actually do their job properly. One of the men at the table shifted uncomfortably. The woman in pearls was staring at her plate, and Dante Moretti was watching the exchange with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something flickering in those dark eyes that might have been anger, but she wasn't sure if it was directed at her or at Vanessa. I'll get the manager. Maya managed, her voice still steady even though she wanted to cry or scream or both. She turned to leave, her cheeks burning with humiliation. And make sure they send someone competent this time, Vanessa called after her, her voice carrying across the now silent dining room. Maya walked toward the kitchen on legs that felt like water, her vision blurring slightly. She'd been stared at, pitied, underestimated, and overlooked her entire life. But she'd never felt quite as worthless as she did walking away from table 6, while Vanessa's mocking laughter followed her like a physical blow. She didn't notice Dante Moretti's jaw tighten, didn't notice the way his hand clenched into a fist on the white tablecloth, didn't notice the cold fury that settled over his features. As he watched her retreat, she just knew she needed to get to the kitchen before anyone saw her cry. Antonio found her in the server station, her hands pressed flat against the counter, breathing slowly through her nose in the technique her therapist had taught her for managing anxiety. Maya, he signed, his face creased with concern. I'm so sorry. I heard what happened. Table 6 is reassigned to Marcus, he just got here. Marcus was sick. Maya signed back, her hands moving with barely controlled anger. He's here now. Antonio's expression was gentle. Take your break. 15 minutes. Go get some air. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to prove she was fine, that one terrible customer didn't affect her. But the truth was she was shaking, adrenaline and humiliation flooding her system in equal measure. She nodded and slipped out the back entrance into the alley behind Luciano's. The early evening air was cool against her flushed face. She leaned against the brick wall and finally let herself feel it, the anger, the shame, the bone-deep exhaustion of constantly having to prove her worth to people who'd already decided she had none. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, Keisha. How's the fancy restaurant tonight? Any celebrities? Maya almost laughed. If only Keisha knew. She was typing a response when movement in her peripheral vision made her look up. A man had entered the alley from the street-side average height, wearing a dark jacket despite the mild evening, his hands in his pockets. Something about the way he moved made Maya's instincts scream danger. The man's eyes locked onto her, and she saw him reach into his jacket. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Chicago alleys were dangerous enough without the man pulled out a gun. Maya's mind went blank with terror. She was pressed against the wall with nowhere to run, the back door to Luciano's 15 feet away. The man was walking toward her with purpose, the gun rising, but it wasn't pointed at her. His attention had shifted to something behind her, and when Maya turned, she saw Dante Moretti stepping out of the restaurant's back entrance, his phone pressed to his ear. Everything happened in the space of a heartbeat. The gunman's hand steadied, his finger moving to the trigger. Dante was completely unaware, his back partially turned as he spoke into his phone. And Maya, operating on pure instinct honed by a lifetime of watching the world without sound, saw what was about to happen. She threw herself forward, her hands moving in sharp, emphatic signs, the universal gesture for gun, for danger, for get down, even as she crashed into Dante Moretti's solid frame, knocking him sideways just as the shot rang out. The bullet hit the brick wall where Dante's head had been a second before, sending chips of mortar flying. Then everything exploded into chaos. Dante rolled with Maya's momentum, his body covering hers protectively as more shots fired. The alley erupted with movement, Dante's security team pouring through the back door, weapons drawn, shouting commands Maya couldn't hear through the ringing in her ears from being so close to gunfire. She was pressed against the concrete, Dante's weight pinning her down, his hand cradling the back of her head like he was trying to shield her from the violence erupting around them. She could feel his heart hammering against her back, could feel the controlled tension in his muscles. The shooting stopped as abruptly as it started. Maya heard muffled shouting, running footsteps. Dante shifted above her, his mouth moving as he spoke to someone. His hand was still gentle on her head, still protecting her, even though the immediate danger had passed. Then he was pulling her up, his hands on her shoulders, his face inches from hers as his lips moved rapidly. Are you hurt? Did he hit you? Are you okay? Maya nodded shakily, her whole body trembling with aftershock. I'm fine. Dante's eyes were blazing. Now, not with anger but with something else. Shock, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. You saw him, he said, speaking slowly enough that Maya could read every word. "You saw the gun before I did." She nodded again. "I'm sorry. I didn't think. You saved my life." The words were stated as fact, undeniable. "You threw yourself in front of a bullet to warn me." "I didn't throw myself in front," Maya started, but Dante's hand came up, stopping her words. His security team was surrounding them now, creating a protective barrier. One of them was speaking urgently into a radio. Another was checking Dante for injuries with practiced efficiency. "Get her inside," Dante ordered, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. "Private room. Now. And someone call Antonio. I need to know everything about her. Everything." "Sir, we need to move you," one of the guards started. "I'm not going anywhere until she's secure." Dante's voice carried absolute authority. "She just saved my life. That makes her my responsibility now." Before Maya could process what that meant, she was being gently but firmly guided back into the restaurant by two of Dante's men. The last thing she saw before the door closed was Dante Moretti standing in that alley, his suit jacket torn, his perfect composure shattered, staring after her like she was a puzzle he desperately needed to solve. And Maya realized, with a mixture of terror and something she didn't want to name, that her quiet life had just been thrust into the spotlight by a man who made empires bow with a whisper. Her world was about to change in ways she couldn't possibly imagine. The private room at Luciano's was meant for celebrity diners who wanted to eat without paparazzi, for politicians making deals they didn't want recorded, for people who needed their privacy guaranteed with the kind of discretion that money could buy. Maya had never been inside it before. Now she sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, a glass of water trembling in her hands, while Dante Moretti's security team swept the room for threats she couldn't even imagine. Antonio stood in the corner, his face pale with worry, signing to her. "Are you sure you're okay? Do you need a doctor?" Maya shook her head. Physically, she was fine, a few scrapes on her palms from hitting the concrete, her uniform torn at the shoulder, but nothing serious. Emotionally, she was barely holding it together. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and cold despite the room's warmth. The door opened, and Dante Moretti walked in, followed by two of his men. He'd removed his torn suit jacket, and his white shirt was smudged with dirt from the alley. But it was his eyes that caught Maya, dark, intense, and fixed on her with a focus that made her feel like the only person in the world. He said something to his security team, and they immediately filed out, taking Antonio with them. The manager shot Maya one last, concerned look before the door closed, leaving her alone with Dante Moretti. The silence stretched. Dante moved to the chair across from her, his movements deliberate and controlled. When he sat down, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and spoke slowly enough that Maya could read every word. "Tell me your name." "Maya Chen." Her voice was steadier than she expected. "How long have you been deaf, Maya?" "Since I was 3. Meningitis." She set down the water glass before she could drop it. "I'm sorry about what happened out there. I didn't mean to. You saved my life." Dante's voice was quiet but carried an intensity that stopped her mid-sentence. "That man was going to kill me, and you saw him before anyone else did, before my trained security team saw him. How?" Maya's hands moved automatically into signing position before she caught herself. I watch people. When you can't hear, you learn to pay attention to everything else. Body language, movement, anything unusual. That man, he was walking wrong, too focused, too purposeful, and when he reached into his jacket, I saw the gun. And your first instinct was to warn me." Dante's expression was unreadable. "Not to run, not to hide, but to put yourself at risk to save someone you don't even know. You were going to die." The words came out simple, honest. "I couldn't just let that happen." Something shifted in Dante's face, a crack in that controlled mask. Most people in Chicago would have let it happen. Some would have cheered. "I'm not most people. No." His eyes tracked over her face like he was memorizing every feature. "You're really not. What you did out there, that kind of awareness, that observation skill, do you know what that's worth in my world?" "Your world?" Maya echoed carefully. Dante smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't pretend you don't know who I am, Maya. I saw your face when Antonio said my name. You know exactly who the Morettis are." Maya's throat went dry. "I know the name. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Exactly." "It means," Dante said, leaning back in his chair, "that the man who tried to kill me tonight was the 4th assassination attempt in 6 months. It means I have enemies who would pay a lot of money to know my routines, my vulnerabilities, my blind spots. And it means that you, a deaf waitress who reads people better than my $50,000 security system, just became extremely valuable. I don't want to be valuable, Maya said quickly. I just want to go back to my normal life. Your normal life ended the moment you saved me. Dante's voice was gentle but absolute. That assassin got away. My men are tracking him now. But until we know who sent him, anyone connected to me is a target. And you, Maya Chen, just connected yourself to me in a very public way. The fear that had been lurking at the edges of Maya's consciousness crashed over her like a wave. What are you saying? I'm saying you need protection, starting now. Before Maya could respond, the door burst open. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her perfect hair slightly mussed, her face flushed with what looked like fear and anger in equal measure. Dante! Oh my God, are you okay? They told me someone tried to. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw Maya. Her expression transformed from concern to cold fury. What is she doing here? Vanessa, Dante stood, his voice carrying a warning. Not now. Not now? Vanessa's voice rose sharply. Someone just tried to kill you and you're locked in a private room with the deaf waitress? What the hell is going on? She saved my life. The words were simple, factual. Vanessa stared at him, then at Maya, then back at Dante. What? The assassin came through the back alley. Maya saw him first, saw the gun, and warned me before he could fire. If it wasn't for her, I'd be dead right now. The color drained from Vanessa's face. For a moment, something that might have been genuine, emotion flickered across her features, fear, relief, horror at how close she'd come to losing her fiancé. But then her eyes cut back to Maya, and the vulnerability vanished behind practiced contempt. Well, Vanessa's voice was brittle. I suppose we should thank her then. Thank you for doing your civic duty. I'm sure Dante will compensate you appropriately for your trouble. Vanessa. Dante's voice had gone cold. She didn't do her civic duty. She threw herself into the line of fire to save someone you were mocking not an hour ago. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Vanessa's perfectly made-up face went rigid. I was not mocking. You called her incompetent. You demanded a real server. You treated her like she was worthless because she's deaf. Dante's voice was quiet, but Maya could see the fury barely contained beneath his controlled exterior. And that worthless, deaf waitress just saved your fiancé's life using the exact same skills you mocked her for. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. Dante, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. He turned away from her, dismissing her in a way that clearly wounded more than any shouting could have. Maya stays with me until we neutralize the threat. That's not negotiable. You can't be serious. Vanessa's voice cracked slightly. Dante, she's a waitress. She's nobody. She's the reason I'm alive. Dante's hand sliced through the air, cutting off Vanessa's protest. Which is more than I can say for my security team who missed an armed man in a 20-foot alley. One of Dante's guards shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. Maya found her voice. Mr. Moretti, I appreciate the concern, but I can't just disappear from my life. I have responsibilities, a job, a roommate, my apartment, all of which I'll make arrangements for. Dante pulled out his phone. Where do you live? I'm not telling you where I live. The words came out sharper than Maya intended. Look, I know you're used to people doing what you say, but you can't just kidnap me because you feel grateful or obligated or whatever this is. Dante's eyebrows rose slightly, as if he wasn't used to being told no. I'm not kidnapping you. I'm protecting you. Without asking if I want protection. Do you want to die? The question was blunt, brutal. Because that's the alternative here, Maya. You saved my life. My enemies will find out. They'll come after you to eliminate witnesses, to send me a message, to find out what you know. You think your apartment with its standard door lock is going to stop the kind of people who sent an assassin after me? The truth of his words settled into Maya's bones like ice. She thought of her small apartment in Logan Square, the deadbolt she'd installed herself, the pepper spray she kept by her bed. Laughable defenses against the kind of danger Dante was describing. I need to call my roommate, she said finally. She'll be worried if I don't come home. You can call her. From the car, Dante was already moving toward the door. We need to move you now, before word spreads. My men will get your things from your apartment. I'm coming too, Vanessa announced, her voice tight. Dante turned to her, and the look he gave his fiancée was colder than anything Maya had seen yet. No, you're not. Excuse me? You heard me. Go back to your penthouse, Vanessa. I'll call you when this is handled. You're choosing her over me? Vanessa's voice rose to a near shriek. After what we've been planning, after our engagement party next week, after everything, I'm choosing to protect someone who saved my life over someone who can't see past their own prejudices long enough to say thank you. Dante's jaw was tight. We'll talk later. Right now, you need to leave. Vanessa's face went through several expressions: shock, hurt, rage, before settling on icy composure. Fine. But don't think this is over, Dante. We're going to have a very long conversation about appropriate gratitude versus whatever this is. She stormed out, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. Maya stood slowly, her legs still unsteady. You didn't have to do that. I don't want to cause problems between you and your fiancé. You didn't cause anything. Dante held the door open for her. Vanessa's behavior tonight showed me something I've been ignoring for a while now. Sometimes it takes a crisis to see people clearly. As they walked through Luciano's drawing stairs from staff and the few remaining dinner guests, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd stepped through a door that was only locked from one side. There was no going back to her invisible life, no returning to the safety of being overlooked. Dante Moretti had noticed her, really noticed her, and in his world, that kind of attention was both a gift and a curse. The SUV was armored. Maya could tell by how heavily it sat on its suspension, by the thickness of the windows. She slid into the back seat, and Dante settled beside her with the kind of natural authority that suggested he was used to commanding any space he occupied. 2 guards sat in the front, and Maya noticed another SUV pulling out behind them as they left Luciano's, a motorcade for a waitress. The absurdity would have been funny if she wasn't so terrified. Maya pulled out her phone with shaking hands and texted Keisha. Something happened at work. I'm okay, but I need to stay somewhere else tonight. We'll explain everything tomorrow. The response was immediate. What? Are you okay? Do I need to call someone? I'm safe. I promise. Just trust me. I'll call you in the morning. Maya Chen, if you get murdered, I'm going to kill you myself. Despite everything. Maya smiled slightly. That was so perfectly, Keisha. Where are we going? She asked Dante, who was speaking quietly into his phone in Italian. She caught fragments by reading his lips. Secure location, full detail, 24-hour watch. He ended the call and turned to face her fully. I have a property in Lincoln Park. Gated, fully secured, staff who know how to be discreet. You'll stay there until we've neutralized the threat. How long will that take? Honestly, I don't know. Could be days, could be weeks. He studied her face. I know this isn't what you wanted, but I need you to understand the moment you saved me. You painted a target on your back. I don't take that lightly. Why? The question came out before Maya could stop it. You don't know me. I'm just a waitress who happened to be in the right place at the right time. You're not just anything. Dante's expression was intense. You saw a threat my trained security missed. You acted without hesitation to save a stranger's life. That kind of instinct, that kind of courage, it's rare. Especially in my world where everyone has an angle. Everyone wants something. What if I want something? Maya challenged. What if saving you was my angle to get close? To you? Dante smiled, a real smile this time that transformed his entire face. Then you're a very poor strategist, because you could have let me die and robbed my corpse. Would have been much simpler. Maya surprised herself by laughing, the sound slightly hysterical but genuine. That's a terrible thing to say. But true. His expression sobered. Maya, I've spent my entire life learning to read people, to spot lies and manipulation and hidden agendas. You warned me, because it's who you are, someone who can't watch another person die without trying to help. That makes you either very brave or very foolish. Probably foolish, Maya admitted. Probably. Dante was quiet for a moment. My mother is deaf. The statement came out of nowhere, catching Maya completely off guard. What? My mother, Isabella. She lost her hearing 20 years ago after a stroke. I spent 2 years learning ASL so I could communicate with her, because I couldn't stand the idea of losing her voice. His hands moved into signing position, and Maya watched in shock as he signed. I know what it's like to watch people dismiss someone because they can't hear. To watch them talk over her, around her, like she's not there. Maya's throat tightened. That's why you reacted to Vanessa that way. That's part of it. Dante's hands dropped. But mostly I reacted because she was wrong. You're more capable than half the people I employ, and they all have perfect hearing. The SUV pulled through a gate that looked like it belonged to a fortress, high walls, security cameras, guards at a booth who waved them through after checking credentials. The property beyond was stunning even in the darkness, a modern glass and stone mansion set back from the street, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably required a full-time landscaping team. "This is where you live?" Maya breathed. "One of my properties. I stay here when I need privacy." Dante's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a frown. "My men got the assassin. He's being questioned now." Questioned. Maya caught the euphemism, the implication of methods she didn't want to think about. "I need to go handle this." Dante turned to her as the SUV stopped in front of the mansion. "But you're safe here. My housekeeper, Mrs. Brennan, will show you to a room. There's a full security detail on the property, and I don't have any clothes," Maya interrupted. "Or my medication, or my spare hearing aids. Everything I need is at my apartment. Give me your keys. My men will get everything tonight. Your men don't know what I need. Then write a list. They'll bring everything." Dante pulled out a business card and a pen, handing them to her. "I need to go, Maya, but I'll be back tomorrow morning, and we'll figure out next steps then. For tonight, just rest. You're safe here." He started to get out, then paused and looked back at her. "Thank you for saving my life. I know I haven't said that properly yet, but thank you." Before Maya could respond, he was gone, striding toward one of the other vehicles with his security team falling into formation around him. The SUVs pulled away in a convoy, leaving Maya standing in front of a mansion that probably had more square footage than her entire apartment building. The front door opened, and a woman in her 60s appeared, gray hair in a neat bun, kind eyes, sensible shoes. She looked at Maya and smiled warmly. "You must be Miss Chen. I'm Mrs. Brennan." She spoke clearly, facing Maya directly. Either Dante had briefed her, or she'd worked with his mother enough to know how to communicate with deaf people. "Let's get you settled, shall we? You've had quite a night." That was the understatement of the century. As Maya followed Mrs. Brennan into the mansion, she caught sight of her reflection in one of the massive windows, torn uniform, dirty face, hair falling out of its bun. She looked like she'd been through a war, and maybe she had. Maybe saving Dante Moretti's life was the beginning of a battle she couldn't even imagine yet. But as she climbed the sweeping staircase to a guest room that turned out to be larger than her entire apartment, with a bathroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel and a bed that could sleep 4 people comfortably, Maya couldn't help but think about the way Dante had looked at her. Not with pity or awkwardness or the usual discomfort people showed around her disability. He'd looked at her like she was capable, valuable, worth protecting. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at her that way. Maya sank onto the impossibly soft bed and finally let herself process everything that had happened. She'd saved a Mafia boss's life. She'd been insulted by his awful fiancé. She'd been nearly killed by an assassin. And now she was living in a mansion under armed guard while her entire normal life sat on pause. The text from Dante. "This is Dante. Sleep well. We'll talk tomorrow." Maya stared at those words and wondered what tomorrow would bring. Or if safety was just another illusion, and she'd actually stepped into the most dangerous situation of her life. Only time would tell. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and, for one disorienting moment, had no idea where she was. The bed beneath her was too soft, the room too large, the silence too complete. Then memory crashed back the alley. The gun. Dante Moretti's dark eyes studying her like she was a puzzle worth solving. She sat up slowly, taking in the guest room that was easily 3 times the size of her bedroom at home. Someone had brought her things during the night. Her duffel bag sat on a chair by the window, neatly packed with clothes, toiletries, and blessedly, her spare hearing aids and medication. Her phone showed 9:47 a.m. and 17 missed texts from Keisha, ranging from concerned to threatening to finally resigned. "Fine, don't tell me, but I'm tracking your phone, and if you're not alive by noon, I'm calling the police and your mother." Maya winced. Her mother. She'd have to call her eventually, but explaining that she'd saved a Mafia boss's life and was now living in his mansion wasn't a conversation she was ready for yet. A soft knock on the door made her look up. Mrs. Brennan entered carrying a tray with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that smelled like heaven. "Good morning, dear." She set the tray on the bedside table, speaking clearly so Maya could read her lips. Mr. Moretti called to say he'll be here around 11. He thought you might like breakfast in your room after yesterday's excitement. Excitement was a diplomatic way to describe nearly dying in an alley. Thank you, Maya said. Mrs. Brennan, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. How long have you worked for Mr. Moretti? The older woman's expression softened. 15 years. I worked for his father before him, and when Dante took over the household after Antonio Sr. passed, he kept me on. He's a good man, Miss Chen. I know what people say about the family, about their business, but Dante, he has a good heart. He just lives in a world that doesn't always let him show it. Maya thought about the way Dante had defended her to Vanessa, the careful way he'd made sure she understood he was protecting her, not imprisoning her. He mentioned his mother is deaf. Mrs. Brennan's face lit up. Mrs. Isabella? Yes, she lives in the East Wing. Such a lovely woman. The stroke took her hearing, but Dante, he was 23 years old, and he learned sign language fluently within 6 months, so they could still talk. I've never seen a son so devoted to his mother. Something warm unfurled in Maya's chest. The image of a young Dante frantically learning ASL to keep his connection with his mother felt more real than any of the dangerous reputation that preceded him. Does she know I'm here? Oh, yes. In fact, she's asked if you'd join her for tea this afternoon, if you're feeling up to it. Mrs. Brennan smiled. She's quite curious about the brave young woman who saved her son's life. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from another unknown number, but the message made her stomach drop. You should have minded your own business. Now you're going to pay for it. Maya's hand started shaking. Mrs. Brennan noticed immediately. What is it, dear? Maya showed her the message. Mrs. Brennan's expression went grim, and she immediately pulled out her own phone. I'm calling security. Mr. Moretti needs to know about this right away. Dante arrived 20 minutes later, his face stormy as he read the threatening text. They were in the mansion's library, a 2-story room lined with books that probably cost more than Maya's college education. Dante paced like a caged predator, while 3 of his security team stood by, their expressions professional but tense. How did they get your number? Dante demanded, not angry at Maya but clearly furious at the breach. I don't know. It's not like I'm listed anywhere special, just my phone carrier's directory. Maya wrapped her arms around herself. What did your people find out from the assassin? Dante's jaw tightened. His name is Victor Petrov. He's a contractor, takes jobs for the highest bidder. He was hired by someone in the Calabrese family to take me out. The Calabrese family? Maya had heard that name too. Another old Chicago crime family, rivals to the Morettis for generations. They've been pushing into our territory for months, testing our boundaries. This was supposed to be a statement, kill me in a public place, show that the Morettis aren't untouchable. Dante stopped pacing and looked at her directly. Victor gave up his contact, and we're working our way up the dom chain. But in the meantime, you're still in danger. They know you saw Victor's face, that you can identify him. And now they know where to find you. How? I haven't told anyone where I am except Keisha, and she would never. Your roommate's phone might be compromised. Or they tracked you through cell towers when you texted her last night. Dante ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I should have had you use a secure phone. This is my fault. It's not your fault that someone tried to kill you, Maya said quietly. And it's not your fault I saved you. Something in Dante's expression cracked. He moved to sit in the chair across from her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired, not just physically, but soul-deep exhausted in a way that spoke of years carrying weight no one else could see. Do you know why I was in that alley last night? He asked. Maya shook her head. I was calling my mother. I call her every evening at exactly 7:30, have for 20 years. When she lost her hearing, she got scared, thought she'd lose connection with everyone, that people would stop including her in their lives because it was too hard to communicate. His hands moved as he spoke, unconsciously signing along with his words. So I promised her I'd call every single day. Video calls so she can see my face, read my lips. Know I'm still her son even if the words are silent. Maya's throat tightened. That's beautiful. It's necessary. Dante's voice was rough. My father, he loved her, but after the stroke, he didn't know how to talk to her anymore. He'd speak at her, not to her. Loud and slow like she was a child, not the brilliant woman he'd married. I watched her shrink a little more each day, watched her start to believe she was less than she was because people treated her that way. Like Vanessa treated me last night, Maya said softly. Yes. The word came out hard. And I swore I'd never be like that. Never let anyone make my mother feel invisible or worthless because of her hearing. But you know what happened? What? I became so focused on protecting her from the world that I built a fortress around her. She lives in luxury, has everything she could want, but she's lonely, Maya. She's so damn lonely because I'm too afraid to let her engage with the outside world, where people might hurt her or take advantage of her or— He stopped, his hands clenching. Or send assassins after her son. Maya understood then. That's why you're keeping me here. Not just to protect me, but because you can't stand the idea of someone else getting hurt because of your world. I dragged you into this. Dante's dark eyes were anguished. You saved my life, and now you're paying the price. Just like everyone who gets close to me pays eventually. Is that why you're marrying Vanessa? The question slipped out before Maya could stop it. Because she's already part of your world, so you're not dragging her into it? Dante let out a process. Bitter laugh. I'm marrying Vanessa because it's a strategic alliance between families. Her father controls shipping routes we need. We control distribution networks he wants. It's business dressed up as romance. That's awful, Maya said. Don't you want love? Love is a luxury I can't afford. But the way he looked at her when he said it made Maya's heart skip. People I love become targets. My mother barely leaves this property. My sister moved to Italy because being a Moretti in Chicago painted a target on her back. Love in my world isn't flowers and romance, it's fear and vulnerability, and knowing that caring about someone gives your enemies a weapon to use against you. So what? You just never let yourself care about anyone? I care about my mother. I care about the people who depend on me, my employees, the families whose livelihoods are tied to my decisions. Dante leaned forward. But romantic love? Letting someone in completely? That's how you get destroyed in this life. Then why are you telling me all this? Maya challenged. If you're so determined to keep everyone at a distance, why are you sitting here explaining your reasoning to a waitress you just met? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because you see things other people miss. Because you threw yourself in front of danger without hesitation. Because when I look at you, I don't see someone who needs protecting from my world. I recognize someone strong enough to survive in it. And that terrifies me more than any assassin ever could. The air between them felt charged, heavy with admission and possibility and danger all tangled together. A knock on the library door broke the tension. One of Dante's guards entered. Sir, Mrs. Moretti is asking when Miss Chen will be joining her for tea. Dante stood, his professional mask sliding back into place with practiced ease. Tell my mother we'll be there in 10 minutes. He turned to Maya. Are you ready to meet the woman who's been terrorizing me with questions about you since she heard what happened? Maya managed to smile. As ready as I'll ever be. Isabella Moretti was nothing like Maya expected. She'd imagined someone severe and formal, maybe cold like the mansion itself. Instead, she found a woman in her 60s with warm brown eyes, silver-threaded dark hair pulled into a loose bun, and a smile that transformed her entire face when Maya entered the sunlit conservatory where she took her afternoon tea. Oh, you're even prettier than Dante described. Isabella signed, her movements fluid and expressive in a way that spoke of decades with the language. Come, sit. I want to hear everything. Maya felt herself relax almost immediately. There was something about Isabella's energy warm and genuine and utterly lacking in the judgment or pity Maya usually encountered. Dante settled into a chair beside his mother, and Maya watched the way Isabella's hand automatically reached for his, a casual gesture of connection that spoke volumes about their relationship. Mama, behave, Dante signed with obvious affection. Don't interrogate her. I'm not interrogating. I'm getting to know the remarkable woman who saved my son's life. Isabella turned to Maya, her expression growing serious. Thank you. I know Dante has already thanked you, but from a mother, thank you for giving me more time with my boy. Maya's eyes stung with unexpected tears. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have, Isabella signed emphatically. Most people see danger and run. You ran toward it. That takes a special kind of courage. Or a special kind of crazy. She smiled to show she was teasing. Definitely the crazy kind, Maya admitted, making Isabella laugh silently. They fell into easy conversation, Isabella asking about Maya's life, her work, how long she'd been deaf. There was no awkwardness, no having to explain or defend or prove herself. Isabella understood implicitly, and Dante translated effortlessly when needed. his hands moving with a grace that made Maya's heart ache. "You learned sign language for your mother," Maya signed to Dante. "That must have been difficult." "It was the easiest decision I ever made," Dante signed back, and the love in his expression made Isabella reach over and pat his cheek affectionately. "My son thinks I don't know how hard he works to keep me safe," Isabella signed to Maya with a knowing look. "He thinks I don't see the guards, the restrictions, the careful management of my life. But I see everything. I just choose to let him believe he's protecting me without me noticing." "Mama," Dante started. "Shush, I'm talking to Maya." Isabella turned back to her. "Tell me, what do you think of my son? And don't say what you think I want to hear. I want the truth." Maya felt heat creep up her neck. I think he carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. I think he's forgotten how to let anyone help him carry it." Isabella's eyes misted. She looked at her son with such profound love and sadness that Maya had to look away. "She understands you," Isabella signed to Dante. "Really understands you. Don't let this one go." "Mama, it's not like that," Dante protested. "Isn't it?" Isabella's smile was knowing. "I may be deaf, my darling boy, but I'm not blind. I see the way you look at her. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one." Before Dante could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went hard. "I need to take this. Maya, stay with my mother. I'll be right back." He left quickly, his security team trailing after him. Isabella watched him go with troubled eyes, then turned to Maya. "My son lives in a dangerous world," she signed slowly. "I've watched it harden him year by year. Watched the sweet boy I raised become someone who can't afford softness or vulnerability. But since last night, since you, I've seen glimpses of that boy again. Hope. That's what I see when he looks at you. Hope that maybe there's another way to live. Mrs. Moretti, you're not just anything." Isabella's signs were fierce. "Don't diminish yourself. You saved his life. You showed him that disability isn't weakness, that observation and intelligence can be more valuable than hearing every word. You've given him something precious, a mirror to see himself clearly. Don't waste that gift by pretending it doesn't matter." Maya's heart hammered in her chest. "What about Vanessa?" "He's engaged." Isabella's expression turned cold. "That woman is not worthy of my son. She sees him as a trophy, a means to elevate her own status. She doesn't love him. She loves what he represents." She leaned forward. "But you risked your life for him when he was a stranger. That kind of selflessness, that kind of heart, that's what my son needs. Not some shallow society woman who mocks people for being different." Before Maya could process that, Dante returned. His face was grim. "What happened?" Maya asked immediately. "We traced the threat message. It came from a burner phone registered to a shell company, but the location pinged near your apartment in Logan Square." Dante's jaw was tight. "They know where you live, Maya. We need to move you somewhere even more secure." "Wait, what about Keisha? My roommate, is she safe?" "My men are positioning outside your building now." "But Maya," Dante hesitated. "There's something else. Viktor Petrov? He's dead, killed in custody by someone who got past our security." The room seemed to tilt. "What does that mean?" "It means whoever hired him doesn't want loose ends. And it means they have reach inside my organization. Someone I trusted let that killer through." Dante's voice was cold with fury. "We're compromised. Until I find the mole, no one is safe." Isabella's hand flew to her chest, her face pale. Dante immediately moved to her side, his hands gentle as he signed reassurance. But Maya could see the fear in both their eyes, not for themselves, but for each other. That's when Maya understood. She wasn't just caught in the crossfire of a mob war. She'd become a piece on a chessboard where every move could mean life or death, where trust was currency and betrayal was everywhere. And somehow, impossibly, she'd become essential to the one man who couldn't afford to care about her. The war room in Dante's mansion was located in the basement concrete walls, no windows, a massive table surrounded by monitors showing security feeds from dozens of locations. Maya sat beside Isabella while Dante stood at the head of the table, flanked by 6 men who all had the hardened look of people who'd seen combat. "We have a traitor," Dante said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Someone in our inner circle led an assassin into our secure facility to kill Petrov. That same someone likely fed information about Miss Chen's location to the Calabrese family." One of the men, broad-shouldered with a scar running down his left cheek, spoke up. Could be anyone with access to the security protocols. That's a list of maybe 20 people. Then we narrow it down. Dante pulled up a file on the main monitor. These are the people who knew Petrov's location and Miss Chen's whereabouts. Marco, I want full surveillance on all of them. Phones, homes, known associates. Someone is going to make contact with their Calabrese handler, and when they do, we'll have them. Maya watched this unfold with a growing sense of unreality. This was Dante's world, strategic, ruthless, operating by rules she didn't understand. He commanded the room with absolute authority, every man deferring to his judgment without question. What about the engagement party? Another man asked. It's in 3 days. You'll be exposed, public venue, hundreds of guests. We're not canceling, Dante said flatly. Canceling shows weakness. The Calabrese family is already testing us. We cancel, they push harder. But sir, if there's a mole, then we use the party to draw them out. Dante's eyes were cold, calculating. We'll be expecting trouble. Let them try something. But we control the venue, we control security, and we control the message. He turned to Maya. You'll need to attend. Maya's eyes widened. What? Why? Because whoever is after you thinks you're a liability, a witness who can identify Victor. If you're at my engagement party, visibly under my protection, it sends a message that I value you enough to bring you into my inner circle. That makes you valuable, not vulnerable. That also makes me a target, Maya pointed out. You're already a target. Dante's voice was gentle but firm. This way, you're surrounded by security. And more importantly, if our mole sees you there, sees how important you've become, they might make a move. Get desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. Isabella's hands moved sharply. You're using her as bait. I'm using every resource I have to end this before more people die. Dante's signs were controlled, but Maya could see the tension in his shoulders. Including myself. What do you mean? Maya asked. Dante pulled up another file, surveillance photos of him taken over the past few weeks. At restaurants, leaving his office, walking through his own property. They've been watching me for months, learning my patterns, my vulnerabilities. Victor was just the first attempt. There will be others. Then maybe you should cancel the party, Maya said. Hide until you find the mole. I don't hide. The words were absolute. I'm the head of this family. If I show fear, if I back down, every rival from here to New York will see blood in the water. I have hundreds of people who depend on me for their livelihoods, their safety. I don't get to be afraid. Maya saw it then, the crushing weight of responsibility that Dante carried. The impossible balance between showing strength and staying alive. He wasn't just protecting himself. He was protecting an entire infrastructure of people whose lives were tied to his. Then I'll go to the party, Maya heard herself say. If my being there helps end this, I'll do it. Maya, no. Isabella started to protest. Your son saved my life by bringing me here. Maya signed to Isabella. He's protected me, even though it would have been easier to just pay me off and send me away. The least I can do is help him. Dante's dark eyes locked onto hers, and the gratitude there was almost overwhelming. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Maya said. I don't even own anything appropriate to wear to a high society engagement party. Despite the tension, Dante smiled slightly. That's the least of our problems. I'll have my mother's stylist send over options. As the meeting broke up and Dante's men dispersed to their assignments, Isabella pulled Maya aside. You care about him, she signed. It wasn't a question. Maya wanted to deny it, but she'd never been good at lying. I barely know him, but you care. I see it. Isabella's expression was sad and knowing. Be careful, dear one. My son's world, it destroys the things he loves. His father, his innocence, his hope for anything resembling a normal life. I don't want it to destroy you too. What if I'm stronger than you think? Maya signed back. Isabella cupped her face gently. What if you're exactly as strong as I think, and it's still not enough? The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Maya was measured for dresses, taught basic security protocols, briefed on who would be attending the party and which guests were potential threats. She learned that Vanessa's father, Paolo Castellano, controlled most of the shipping ports in Chicago, and that the engagement was indeed a business merger, masquerading as romance. She also learned that Dante barely slept. She'd see him at odd hours, 2 a.m., in his office, phones pressed to his ear, 5 a.m., in the gym, beating a punching bag like it had personally offended him, breakfast meetings that started at 6:30 and ran until she left for her daily sessions with Isabella, because that had become part of her routine mornings with Isabella, learning about Dante's childhood, his sister Sophia who lived in Milan, the slow transformation from sweet boy to hardened man. Isabella showed her photos Dante at 8 with a gap-toothed smile, at 12 accepting an award for academic excellence, at 16 standing beside his father at some formal event, the light already starting to fade from his eyes. That was the year his father brought him fully into the business, Isabella explained, her signs tinged with regret. The year he stopped being a child. Maya studied the photo young Dante, trying so hard to look serious, to look worthy of standing beside his powerful father. Her heart ached for that boy who'd had his innocence stolen too soon. The night before the engagement party, Maya couldn't sleep. She wandered the mansion's halls until she found herself in the library, running her fingers along the spines of books she couldn't imagine Dante having time to read. Can't sleep either. Maya spun to find Dante in the doorway, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt that showed off the muscled definition of someone who used physical training to process stress. His hair was mussed, his face shadowed with exhaustion and something else, worry, maybe, or fear, carefully controlled. Too much thinking, Maya admitted. Dante moved into the library, maintaining a careful distance. About tomorrow? About everything. About how 3 days ago I was just a waitress worried about making rent, and now I'm in the middle of a mob war. She turned to face him fully. About how none of this makes sense, but somehow it's the most real thing I've ever experienced. I'm sorry, Dante said quietly. I'm sorry you saved me. I'm sorry you're in danger because of me. I'm sorry I've pulled you into a world you never asked to be part of. Are you? Maya challenged. Because part of me thinks you're not sorry at all. Part of me thinks you're glad I'm here. Dante's expression was raw, unguarded in a way she'd never seen. You want the truth? Always. I am glad. The admission seemed torn from somewhere deep. I'm terrified for your safety, furious that you're at risk, willing to burn the entire city down to keep you safe. But yes, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you saved me. I'm glad I got to know you, to see my mother light up when she talks to you, to watch you navigate my world with grace and intelligence and courage I didn't know still existed. He took a step closer, his voice dropping. I'm glad because, for the first time in 20 years, I look at my life and see possibility instead of obligation. I look at you and remember what it felt like to want something for myself instead of just doing what's expected. And that makes me the most selfish bastard alive, because wanting you puts you in danger. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Dante, tomorrow you're going to stand beside me at my engagement party to another woman. You're going to smile for cameras and make small talk with people who are trying to figure out who you are, why you matter to me. And the whole time, someone in that room will be planning how to hurt me by hurting you. He was close enough now that Maya could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the way his chest rose and fell with controlled breathing. So tell me, Maya, knowing all that, knowing the danger and the impossibility and the absolute mess this is, do you want to walk away? Because I'll let you. Right now. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere they'll never find you, give you enough money to start over. Just say the word. Maya looked up at this dangerous, complicated man who'd learned sign language for his mother, who carried the weight of hundreds of lives on his shoulders, who looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been afraid to ask. I'm not walking away, she said firmly. I'm staying. Tomorrow, next week, however long it takes to end this. I'm staying. Why? Dante's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Why would you choose this? Choose me. Because someone has to remind you that you're more than the monster your world demands you to be, Maya said softly. Because your mother deserves to see her son happy. Because She stopped, the words catching in her throat. Because you what? Dante's voice was barely a whisper. Because I see you, Maya finished. The real you. And I'm not afraid. The kiss happened like gravity, inevitable, necessary. The culmination of 3 days of circling each other with careful words and careful distance. Dante's lips were gentle at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. But Maya didn't pull away. She leaned into him, her hands coming up to fist in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, becoming less careful and more desperate, two people grabbing onto something real in a world built on lies and violence and careful alliances. When they finally broke apart, Dante pressed his forehead to hers, his breathing ragged. This is insane. Completely, Maya agreed. I'm engaged to another woman? I know. You could die because of me. I know that too. Dante pulled back to look at her, his dark eyes searching hers. And you're still not running? I'm not running. Maya smiled slightly. But you might want to figure out what you're going to do about Vanessa before tomorrow night. Because I'm not playing the other woman, Dante. If this, whatever this is, if it's real, then you need to end things with her. Properly. It's a business arrangement. Then renegotiate. Maya's voice was firm. I grew up being dismissed and overlooked and treated like I was less than because I'm deaf. I'm not doing that in my personal life too. If you want me, really want me, then I need to be more than your secret. I need to matter. Dante stared at her for a long moment, then slowly smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. You already matter more than you know. And yes, I'll end it with Vanessa, tomorrow, before the party. You're going to break up with your fiancé on the day of your engagement party? I'm going to break a business arrangement that should never have been personal. Dante pulled her close again. And then I'm going to spend the rest of that party making sure everyone knows exactly who you are to me. And what am I to you? Maya asked. Dante's answer was to kiss her again, slower this time, with a tenderness that made her chest ache. When he pulled back, his hands moved into signing position, and he signed with perfect fluency. You're the reason I remember what hope feels like. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She signed back. You're the reason I'm learning what bravery feels like. They stood there in the library, holding each other. Two people from completely different worlds, finding something impossible and precious in the space between danger and safety, between duty and desire. Tomorrow would bring complications and confrontations and possibly violence. But tonight, in this moment, they had each other. And sometimes, Maya was learning, that was enough. The engagement party was being held at the Chicago History Museum, a stately building that had been rented out entirely for the occasion. Maya arrived with Isabella and a security detail of 6 men, wearing a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than her car and feeling completely out of her element. The main hall glittered with wealth and power. Chicago's elite had turned out in force politicians, business magnates, old money families, whose roots in the city went back generations. Photographers captured every arrival, and Maya tried not to flinch when the flashes went off in her face. Breathe, Isabella signed to her as they entered. You look beautiful. Stand tall. Easy for her to say. Isabella wore her wealth and status like a second skin, gracious and elegant in a silver gown. Maya felt like an imposter, a waitress playing dress-up in a world where she didn't belong. Then she saw Dante, and everything else faded away. He stood near the main hall's center, surrounded by associates and well-wishers. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him like it had been painted on, his dark hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding the room without effort. When his eyes found Maya's across the crowd, the heat in his gaze made her forget how to breathe. He excused himself from his conversation and moved through the crowd toward her, people naturally parting to let him pass. When he reached her, he took her hand and brought it to his lips in a gesture that was somehow both old-fashioned and intimate. You're stunning, he said, speaking clearly so she could read his lips. You're engaged, Maya reminded him, acutely aware of the eyes on them. Not anymore. Dante's smile was grim. I had a conversation with Vanessa and her father this afternoon. The engagement is off. Maya's eyes widened. What? How did they? Paolo Castellano was not happy, but I made it clear that the business arrangement can continue without the personal attachment. We'll still cooperate on shipping and distribution, but I'm not marrying his daughter. Dante's hand tightened on hers. There was some shouting, some threats, but ultimately, he needs me more than I need him. Dante, if you've made an enemy, I've made several enemies tonight. His expression was fierce, and I'd do it again. You were right, Maya. You deserve better than being a secret. Before Maya could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Vanessa Castellano had arrived, and she looked like a woman ready for war. Her white designer gown was stunning, her blonde hair perfect, her makeup flawless, but her eyes were filled with cold fury. She stormed across the room directly toward Dante and Maya, her father trailing behind her with a warning hand on her arm that she shook off. You, Vanessa hissed, her perfectly made-up face ugly with rage. This is your fault. You ruined everything. Vanessa, Dante's voice was a warning. Don't. Don't what? Tell everyone here that you threw away our engagement? Our family's alliance for some deaf waitress? Vanessa's voice rose, drawing stares. That you've humiliated me, humiliated my family, all because this nobody saved your life? She's not a nobody, Dante said coldly. And you need to leave, now. I'm not going anywhere. Vanessa's hand came up, and Maya saw the champagne glass too late. Vanessa hurled the contents directly at Maya's face, the liquid, cold, and shocking, champagne running down her gown, ruining the careful styling. The room went silent. Maya stood there, dripping and humiliated, feeling every eye in the room on her. This was high school all over again, being mocked, being made to feel small, being punished for existing. Then Dante moved. He shrugged off his tuxedo jacket and wrapped it around Maya's shoulders, his movements gentle. Then he turned to Vanessa with an expression that made several nearby guests step back. You need to leave, he repeated, his voice deadly quiet. And you need to understand something. Maya Chen is under my protection. She is important to me, and anyone who disrespects her, who hurts her, who so much as looks at her wrong, answers to me personally. Is that clear? Vanessa's face had gone pale. Dante, I didn't mean… Yes, you did. Dante's hand moved to the small of Maya's back, possessive and protective. You've shown everyone in this room exactly who you are. My only regret is that I didn't see it sooner. Paulo Castellano stepped forward, his face red with anger. You're making a mistake, Moretti. A very expensive mistake. Then I'll pay the price. Dante didn't back down. But I'm not paying it with my happiness or hers. Now get out of my party. Security moved in, gently but firmly escorting Vanessa and her father toward the exit. As they left, Vanessa turned back one last time, her voice carrying across the silent room. You'll regret this, Dante. Both of you will regret this. The threat hung in the air like poison. Then someone started clapping. Maya looked over to see Isabella, her hands coming together in sharp, deliberate applause. Other guests joined in, uncertain at first, then with more enthusiasm, until the entire room was applauding. Though whether they were applauding Dante's defense of Maya or his brutal ending of a powerful alliance, Maya couldn't tell. Dante turned to Maya, his hand still on her back. Are you okay? Maya looked down, at her ruined gown, at Dante's tuxedo jacket wrapped around her shoulders, at the room full of Chicago's elite, staring at them with fascination and speculation and judgment. And she started laughing. Not polite, controlled laughter, but real, genuine, slightly hysterical laughter born from the sheer absurdity of it all. 3 days ago, she'd been serving these people dinner. Now she was standing in a champagne-soaked designer gown while a Mafia boss defended her honor. Dante stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Then slowly, impossibly, he started laughing too. Real laughter that Maya had never heard from him before, the sound rusty with disuse but genuine. Isabella joined them, her silent laughter shaking her shoulders as she signed. Well, that was dramatic. I haven't seen Dante end an engagement that thoroughly since he dumped Sofia Marcetti in 10th grade. I was 15 and she tried to poison my dog. Dante signed back, still smiling. Details, Isabella waved dismissively. She turned to Maya. Come, dear. Let's get you cleaned up. I have a dress you can borrow. As Isabella led her away, Maya glanced back at Dante. He was watching her with an expression that made her heart skip, protective, possessive, and something deeper that looked almost like love. But then she saw it. Over Dante's shoulder, near the museum's west entrance, a man in catering uniform was moving too purposefully, his hand reaching into his jacket in a way that made Maya's trained instincts scream danger. Gun! She shouted, her voice carrying despite the ambient noise. Everything exploded into chaos. Dante's security team moved instantly, weapons appearing from nowhere as they formed a protective barrier around him. The man in catering uniform pulled out an assault rifle, and Maya saw with horrible clarity that he wasn't alone. 3 more armed men were positioned around the room's perimeter, all drawing weapons simultaneously. This wasn't a single assassin. This was a coordinated attack. Gunfire erupted. Guests screamed and dove for cover. Dante was tackled to the ground by his bodyguards. Isabella was pulled behind a marble pillar, and Maya found herself shoved down behind a display case by one of the security team. Through the chaos, Maya's eyes tracked the movements of the attackers. She couldn't hear the shouted commands or the screaming, but she could see everything the way they moved in coordinated patterns, the hand signals they used, the way one gunman was systematically working his way toward where Dante had gone down. That gunman was going to get a clear shot. Maya could see the trajectory, could see the gap in security coverage that would open in exactly 3 seconds. She didn't think. She grabbed a champagne bottle from a toppled table, ran toward the gunman at an angle that kept her out of his line of sight, and smashed it across the back of his head just as he raised his rifle toward Dante. The man went down hard. His weapon clattered away, and suddenly Dante's security team was on top of the situation, taking down the remaining attackers with brutal efficiency. It was over in less than 2 minutes. 4 gunmen, unconscious or dead, several wounded security personnel, and a room full of traumatized guests huddled behind overturned tables and marble pillars. Dante was on his feet immediately, his eyes scanning the room until they found Maya. He crossed to her in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe. "You saved me again," he said against her hair. "You're going to give me a heart attack with your heroics. Someone has to keep you alive," Maya managed, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Dante's men were already securing the scene, disarming the attackers, checking the fallen for any intelligence. One of the guards approached Dante with a phone he'd taken off the leader. "Boss, you need to see this." Dante took the phone, his expression darkening as he read the messages. Then he showed them to Maya. The texts were clear. "Target is Dante Moretti. Secondary targets are his mother and the Chen woman. Kill them all. Send a message." And the contact name made Maya's blood run cold. M.R. "Marco Rivera," Dante said grimly, looking at one of his oldest guards, the man with the scar down his cheek who'd been with the family for 15 years. "My father's most trusted man, the one person I never thought would betray us." Marco's face was ashen. "Boss, I can explain. You can confess." Dante's voice was ice. "The Calabrese family promised you what? Money? Territory? Or did they just threaten someone you love?" Marco's silence was answer enough. "Take him," Dante ordered, and his men moved in. "And someone call my lawyer. This is going to be a very long night." As Marco was led away and the police began flooding into the museum, Dante turned back to Maya and Isabella, pulling them both close. "It's over," he said, quietly. "The mole is exposed. The attack failed. You're both safe now." But Maya saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of betrayal settling on his shoulders. She reached up and touched his face, making him look at her. "You're safe too," she signed. "That matters just as much." Dante caught her hand and kissed her palm. "Because of you. Always because of you." Isabella watched them with tears streaming down her face, tears of relief and joy and hope for a future she'd thought her son would never have. The engagement party was ruined. The museum was a crime scene. Multiple people were injured, and the scandal would dominate Chicago news for weeks. But Dante Moretti was alive. His mother was safe, and the woman who'd saved them both was standing beside him, holding his hand, refusing to let go. Sometimes, Maya thought, the most dangerous thing you could do was care about someone in a world built on violence and betrayal. But sometimes, it was also the only thing worth doing. 3 months later, Maya stood in the kitchen of Dante's Lincoln Park mansion. Their mansion now, though she still wasn't used to thinking of it that way, making coffee the way she'd learned he liked it. Strong, black, with just a touch of sugar that he pretended he didn't want, but always drank to the last drop. Life had settled into a new normal. She still worked at Luciano's, though now she did it because she wanted to, not because she needed the money. Dante had tried to convince her to quit, to let him support her, but Maya had held firm. She needed something that was hers, something that existed outside of his dangerous world. Though after the engagement party massacre, as the media had dubbed it, Luciano's had become the most sought-after reservation in Chicago. Everyone wanted to dine at the restaurant where the brave deaf waitress worked, the woman who'd saved Dante Moretti's life twice and walked away without a scratch. The publicity had been overwhelming at first, but Dante's lawyers had managed most of it, and eventually the news cycle had moved on to the next scandal. Marco Rivera was serving 20 years for conspiracy and attempted murder. The Calabrese family had been severely weakened by the exposure of their assassination plot, and Vanessa Castellano had moved to New York, her social standing in Chicago destroyed by her public humiliation. Maya felt a slight vibration through the floor the signal system Dante had installed so she'd know when someone was approaching. She turned to find him in the doorway, fresh from his morning workout, wearing shorts and a t-shirt that showed off muscles earned through years of physical training. "Morning," he signed with a smile that still made her heart skip. "Coffee's almost ready," she signed back. "Your mother wants us to come over for lunch. She's made lasagna. She makes lasagna when she wants to talk about something important," Dante signed with mock concern. What did we do? Nothing. She just likes feeding us. Maya poured coffee into 2 mugs. Though she did mention that Sophia is coming to visit next month and she'd love for us all to have dinner together. Dante moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. My sister is going to interrogate you mercilessly. I can handle it. Maya leaned back into his embrace. I've survived assassination attempts. I can survive family dinners. Speaking of family. Dante turned her around to face him, his expression suddenly serious. I have something for you. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Maya's heart started hammering. Dante, let me finish, he said, speaking aloud while his hands moved in sign. 3 months ago, a deaf waitress saved my life in an alley. She saw danger I missed, threw herself into harm's way without hesitation, and changed my entire world in the span of a heartbeat. He opened the box to reveal a ring not ostentatious or massive like the danger's plan, one Vanessa had worn, but perfect. A simple band with a single diamond, elegant and understated, and somehow exactly right. Since then, she's saved me 3 more times. Once from another assassin. Once from my own mother's matchmaking schemes. He smiled slightly. And every day from forgetting that there's more to life than duty and danger and the weight of responsibility. Dante got down on one knee, and Maya's vision blurred with tears. Maya Chen, you are the bravest, most stubborn, most remarkable person I've ever met. You see the world in ways I never could, and you've taught me that disability isn't weakness, it's a different kind of strength. You've given my mother a friend who understands her. You've given me a reason to want more than just survival. His hands moved with perfect fluency. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Maya was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she signed, her hands shaking. Yes, absolutely yes. Dante slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like coffee and promise, and the future they'd built from danger and defiance and something that looked a lot like love. When they finally broke apart, Maya signed. Your mother is going to be impossible about this. She's been planning our wedding since the day you moved in. Dante signed back with a grin. I have detailed notes. Of course you do. Maya laughed. Does she know you were proposing today? She picked out the ring, Dante admitted. Said I'd choose something too practical and not romantic enough. She's not wrong. Maya studied the ring on her finger, the way it caught the morning light. It's perfect. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, 2 people from completely different worlds, who'd found something impossible in the space between danger and safety, between silence and sound, between what they were and what they chose to become. Outside, Dante's security team maintained their constant vigil. His business continued its careful balance between legitimate and less than legitimate operations. The world remained dangerous and complicated and full of people who would happily see him dead. But inside this kitchen, in this moment, there was just Maya and Dante, and the quiet promise of a future they'd build together one day. One coffee, one signed conversation at a time. Because sometimes love arrived not with fanfare but with a simple moment of bravery. Sometimes it was built from danger and defiance, and the choice to see someone truly, completely, without letting fear or prejudice or disability get in the way. And sometimes, the most powerful language wasn't spoken at all. It was signed with trembling hands, seen with understanding eyes, and felt with hearts brave enough to stay open even when the world demanded they close. Maya had saved Dante's life 3 times, but what he'd given her in return was worth far more: the knowledge that she was seen, valued, and loved not despite her deafness, but including all of who she was. That was the greatest gift of all. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.